You're about to discover something most women will never know. It's a hidden switch inside the male body, one that, when touched the right way, doesn't just arouse him. It opens the floodgates of emotional attachment. And no, it's not what you're thinking. Carl Jung, yes, that Jung, spent 20 years studying over 500 men to uncover this. The finding was so powerful, he never published it. It remained locked in his private archives, until now. Think of this as an archaeological expedition. I'll be your guide. And you're the fearless explorer, about to step into a realm 99% of women overlook. We're standing at the entrance to what Jung called the bridge between the body and the soul. Zone 1. This is the most misunderstood area of the male body. It's a place women touch all the time, without ever realizing what it can actually do. Ready for the twist? It's the neck. Yep, the neck. But not just a kiss or a gentle caress like the movies show. This goes deeper. Jung found that on the back of the male neck, right where the hairline begins, there's a dense web of nerve endings directly wired to his emotional core. This isn't just a physical, erogenous zone. This is a neurological gateway, an emotional trigger point. Carla, 52, sent me a message I'll never forget. She said, "I don't know what happened. I touched Maurizio's neck in that exact way, and his whole face changed. Like he saw something in me he hadn't before. Since that night, he's different. Softer. More loving. More in love." Here's the technique Jung documented in his notes. Use your fingertips, only your fingertips, and make slow, deliberate circular motions in a clockwise direction, just above the base of his neck. Apply light pressure, not too soft, not too firm. The magic starts at around the 30-second mark. That's when the neurobiological circuit activates. Touch for less than that. Nothing happens. Touch too aggressively. You short-circuit the emotional response. It's all about precision. Marco, who's been married for 10 years, told me, "When my wife touches my neck that way, I swear I turn to clay. I don't even know who I am anymore. I just know I'm hers." But here's the most important part: timing. You don't want to use this technique in the middle of high arousal moments. That's when his mind is focused on physical sensation, not emotion. Instead, use it during the quiet moments. When you're cuddled on the couch. After sex. During soft moments. When his guard is down. That's when his brain connects the sensation to something deeper. Safety, affection, trust. That's when emotional imprinting begins. Lucia shared her experience. "We were just watching a movie. Nothing special. I reached out and touched his neck like you explained. After a minute, he turned to me, his eyes glossy. He said, 'I love you so much it hurts.' That was the first time I saw him that emotionally open." But why does it work? Because the male neck is connected to the vagus nerve, the same nerve responsible for calming the nervous system. When you stimulate it properly, you're not just giving pleasure, you're resetting his emotional hardware. You're programming his nervous system to associate peace and emotional safety with you. That's why men who experience this technique develop what Jung called positive emotional dependence. Now, don't get scared by that word, dependence. It doesn't mean he becomes needy or loses his strength. It means that you become the emotional safe haven he never knew he needed. Roberto emailed me after trying it. His words moved me. "When my wife touches my neck that way, it's like she holds the key to a secret room inside me. A room I didn't even know existed. And in that room, I can just be. No masks. No performance. Just me." And here's the beautiful part. This works regardless of his personality or age. Jung tested this technique on men from all walks of life. Young and old. Introverts and extroverts. Romantic dreamers and pragmatic thinkers. The result. Every time. Emotional connection. Immediate. Deep. Lasting. But that's only the beginning. Now that you've uncovered the first treasure on our secret map, it's time to move to the second. Zone 2 is unlike anything you've imagined. It's a place women never pay enough attention to. And yet, Jung considered it the key to unlocking a man's emotional memory. Ready? It's the wrists. Yes, the wrists. I know, it doesn't sound sexy. But stay with me. Jung found something astonishing. The male wrists contain energetic lines that intersect right beneath the skin. These lines have been recognized in Eastern medicine for thousands of years. But Jung connected them to something far more profound, a buried emotional trigger he called the memory of childhood abandonment. Sounds heavy, right? Let me explain. Every man, no matter how tough, how successful, how stoic, has buried within him the memory of a time when he felt small, unprotected, and deeply in need of unconditional love. That memory gets tucked away, never spoken about. But it remains. And the wrists? They are the gateway to it. Anna, one of my students, shared this. I always thought Leandro was made of ice. 15 years together and I'd never seen him cry. Then I used the wrist technique you taught us. He broke down in tears. He told me he felt loved in a way he hadn't since he was a child. Here's how to do it, and do it right. You need to create what Jung called the circle of intimacy. That means the environment must be right. This isn't something you try while he's stressed, distracted, or mid-conversation. This is for quiet moments. After sex. During pillow talk. When the world fades away. Gently take both of his wrists in your hands. No pressure. No massage. Just wrap your fingers around them like a human bracelet. Soft. Present. Intentional. Hold them there. Breathe with him. For at least 2 minutes. That's when the shift begins. The body interprets this sustained contact as a return to the safest state it's ever known, being held, being protected, being loved. Giorgio, 60, told me, when my wife holds my wrists that way, I feel like I become the little boy I used to be, the one I thought I had buried. But instead of shame, I feel peace. What's happening on a biological level? The wrists are crossed by the radial artery, which delivers blood from the heart to the hands. When you apply gentle, sustained touch there, you slightly reduce the flow. The brain registers this as a calming signal, triggering what Jung called the refuge response. And when this happens regularly, something powerful awakens. The man begins to associate you with that rare, sacred feeling, emotional safety. He doesn't just want to be around you. He needs to. Because no one else makes him feel that calm. Claudia wrote, Andrea used to be so stressed. Work. Life. He was always tense. But now, when I hold his wrists, I feel him melt. He tells me, you're my safe place. But remember, timing is everything. You must wait until he's emotionally open. If you try this when he's guarded or preoccupied, it won't work. Jung was clear. This technique only functions when his defenses are already lowered. Martyr said, Paolo had a rough day. I didn't talk much. I just sat beside him and gently held his wrists. He went from tense and exhausted to soft and affectionate in minutes. It was like watching a wall crumble. This technique doesn't make him feel weak. It makes him feel seen, loved, accepted. Not for his power, his achievements, or his performance, but for his very essence. Federico told me something that hit hard. If my wife doesn't hold my wrists during our cuddles, I miss it. It's like something essential is missing. Like I need that feeling to be whole. But what comes next? That's where things get even more fascinating. We're now approaching Zone 3, the center of emotional control. A place so overlooked, you probably won't believe it until you try it. So, let's talk about something most people don't want to admit. Sometimes, it's not about your strategy. It's not your niche. It's not your product. It's not even your work ethic. You're not failing because you're lazy. You're failing because you're emotionally attached to staying the same. You've built an identity around who you've been. And even though that version of you hasn't gotten the results you want, it's familiar. It's safe. It's what you know. And the truth is, Your brain doesn't care about success. Your brain cares about safety. It will convince you to stay exactly where you are, even if where you are is painful, because pain that's familiar feels more comfortable than change that's uncertain. That's why most people don't change. They don't fail for lack of knowledge, resources, or opportunity. They fail because they never disidentified with the version of themselves that was built for survival, not success. You can't build a new life with a mindset that built your old one. You can't start thinking like a millionaire while still identifying as someone who's broke and desperate. You can't become a leader while still clinging to the comfort of being invisible. You can't attract a healthy relationship while still seeing yourself as unworthy of love. So let me ask you, who do you believe you are, deep down? Not what you want to believe. Not what you say in front of other people. But what do you whisper to yourself when no one else is listening? Do you still see yourself as the girl who's too emotional? The woman who always overthinks? The one who's not consistent, not good at finishing things, not disciplined enough? Because if that's the story playing on repeat in your head, then that's the future you're wiring into your nervous system every single day. Let me say this clearly. The identity you hold determines the limits you live with. That's why real success requires death. The death of your old identity. The death of your excuses. The death of every story you've ever told yourself about why you're not good enough. And yes, it hurts. It's uncomfortable to outgrow the people you love. It's painful to admit that the life you built was designed for survival, not for greatness. It's terrifying to let go of the certainty that kept you safe, even when that safety was slowly killing your potential. But here's what's on the other side of that death. Clarity, power, alignment, purpose, peace. When you stop trying to protect your old identity and start building a new one, everything begins to shift. You stop needing motivation because your habits are no longer at war with who you say you want to be. You stop chasing validation because you're no longer acting from lack. You stop settling for less because the version of you that tolerated crumbs no longer exists. This is the truth most people run from. If you want a new life, you need to become a new person. Not on the outside. Not just with a new job, or a new relationship, or a new Instagram bio. I'm talking about a deep, internal shift. You need to change how you think, how you speak, how you carry yourself, how you respond to challenges, how you lead yourself when no one's watching. You have to become the kind of woman who doesn't just dream big, but lives like someone who expects her dreams to become reality. That means no more playing small so people won't feel threatened by you. No more hiding your gifts because you're afraid of being seen. No more pretending you don't care just to protect yourself from disappointment. Because here's the thing. Your life will always rise or fall to the level of your identity. So if you're stuck, don't ask what you need to do. Ask, who do I need to become to live the life I say I want? Do you need to become more disciplined? More courageous? More emotionally regulated? More committed to your vision than to your fears? This isn't about acting as if. It's about reprogramming your nervous system to expect more. It's about creating a new emotional home where confidence, clarity, and conviction feel more natural than self-doubt. You don't need another course. You don't need more motivation. You don't need another morning routine. You need to rebuild your identity from the inside out. Because once you see yourself differently, everything else changes. Your energy shifts. Your standards rise. Your tolerance for anything misaligned disappears. And here's what's wild. The world starts treating you differently the moment you treat yourself differently. People respect you more. Opportunities flow more easily. You attract relationships that match your frequency instead of ones that mirror your wounds. But none of that can happen until you let go of the woman you've been. The woman who self-sabotaged. The one who played small. The one who needed other people's approval to feel worthy. She got you here. And that's something to honor. But she can't take you where you're meant to go. Only the next version of you can do that. So how do you actually become that next version of you? Let's get real here. It's not about faking it. It's not about pretending to be confident when deep down, you're still battling self-doubt. It's not about forcing yourself to repeat affirmations you don't even believe. It's about creating evidence. Because your brain doesn't believe what you say, it believes what you prove. That's why you can tell yourself, I'm disciplined all day long, but if you keep breaking promises to yourself, your nervous system won't buy it. That's why you can say, I'm high value, but if you keep tolerating relationships that drain you, your subconscious will keep dragging you back to the same patterns. So here's the truth. You don't step into a new identity by thinking harder. You step into it by behaving differently. Even if it feels awkward at first. Even if your hands shake. Even if your voice trembles. Because the moment you take an action that contradicts your old identity, your brain starts to panic. And that's a good thing. It means you're disrupting the pattern. You're challenging the version of you that was built to survive, not to thrive. Think about it this way. If the old you would have stayed silent in a meeting, speak up. If the old you would have skipped the workout, get up and move. If the old you would have apologized just to keep the peace, hold your boundary. Every time you act out of alignment with your old identity, you're telling your nervous system, hey, we don't live there anymore. You're rewiring your emotional baseline. You're teaching your body to get familiar with discomfort, because that's where growth lives. And no, it doesn't feel natural at first. That's the point. Confidence isn't the starting point, it's the reward. Courage comes first. That's what most people get wrong. They wait to feel ready. They wait to feel confident. They wait until the fear goes away. But fear doesn't leave you alone because you asked nicely. Fear leaves when you stop feeding it evidence. You build confidence by doing scary things, while you're still scared. You build consistency by showing up when you don't feel like it. You build self-respect by honoring your standards even when it costs you comfort, connection, or approval. You build a new identity the same way you built your old one. Repetition. Except this time, you're not repeating habits that numb you. You're repeating habits that liberate you. You're building rituals that align with who you really are, not the version of you that had to shrink to survive. You want to feel powerful. Start keeping promises to yourself, even the small ones. Wake up when you said you would. Follow through when no one's watching. Speak up when your voice shakes. Say no when your boundaries are crossed. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it does have to be honest. Because your nervous system knows when you're lying to yourself. It knows when you're settling. It knows when you're performing. It knows when you're out of alignment. That's why you feel anxious when you're playing small. That's why you feel depressed when you ignore your potential. That's why you feel resentful when you keep betraying yourself to make others comfortable. Those emotions aren't weaknesses. They're messages. Your body isn't broken. It's just begging you to stop abandoning yourself. So if you're stuck, here's your next step. Don't try to become the most successful version of you. Become the most authentic version. Because authenticity is your superpower. It's what makes you magnetic. It's what makes your vision sustainable. It's what gives you the stamina to keep going even when things get hard. You weren't born to be a carbon copy of someone else. You weren't meant to mold yourself into a watered-down version of what the world expects. You were made to lead, to create, to express, to stand for something. But that version of you can't emerge while you're still addicted to being liked. She can't lead while you're still performing for approval. She can't rise while you're still apologizing for your power. So here's a question to sit with. Are you building a life that's true to you, or one that keeps everyone else comfortable? Are you choosing growth, or are you choosing familiarity? Are you telling yourself the truth, or are you spinning a story that helps you avoid discomfort? It's okay if the answer stings. That just means there's still more of you to meet. Because here's the good news. You're not stuck. You're just loyal to an outdated version of yourself. And the moment you choose differently, Even in a small way, you start to break free. One decision, one action, one moment of courage. That's all it takes to start becoming the woman who's already living the life you want. And once you've tasted that version of you, you'll never want to go back. Here's the thing they never told you about becoming her. It's not glamorous. It's not always fun. And it's definitely not instant. Becoming her means you're going to have seasons where everything feels like it's falling apart. Because, honestly, parts of you are. The parts that were built from trauma. The patterns that kept you small. The stories that told you you had to earn love, prove your worth, or shrink yourself to belong. Those parts have to die for your true self to live. And yeah, it's uncomfortable. But it's necessary. Because the truth is, evolution doesn't feel like winning. It feels like shedding. It feels like grief. It feels like doubt, disorientation, and wondering if you're doing it all wrong. It's those late nights when your heart is pounding and your mind is racing with all the reasons why you should just go back to your old life. It's when the people around you start saying, "You've changed." And you have to decide whether that's an insult or a confirmation. It's when you start craving solitude more than small talk. When peace starts to matter more than performance. When being misunderstood feels less threatening than being misaligned. That's how you know you're stepping into your next era. Not when everything looks perfect, but when you're finally willing to let go of everything that isn't real. And here's the real magic. You don't have to wait for permission. You don't need the whole plan. You just need the next step. You don't need to see the top of the staircase. You just need to trust the step in front of you. That's how real transformation happens. It's not this massive overnight leap. It's the tiny, quiet decision to show up differently, over and over, until one day you wake up and realize you don't chase people anymore. You don't beg for validation. You don't betray your values just to keep the peace. You don't live on autopilot. You don't numb your truth. You don't shrink your brilliance to fit into spaces that were never built for you. Instead, you protect your energy like it's sacred. You lead with your heart, but you're not afraid to walk away. You say no without guilt. You say yes without over-explaining. You no longer confuse someone else's comfort with your own responsibility. You no longer confuse control with safety. You no longer confuse attention with love. Because you've learned, peace isn't found in the world, it's created within you. You've become your own anchor, your own home, your own source of worth. And from that place, everything changes. You attract better. You expect more. You stop apologizing. You no longer ask, "What do they want from me?" Instead, you ask, "What do I need to stay in alignment?" You no longer live for the highlight reel. You start living for depth, for truth, for presence. It's not about being perfect, it's about being real. That's the version of you the world is waiting for. Not the edited one. Not the people-pleasing one. Not the version that hides behind filters, facades, and fear. The whole you. The bold you. The woman who's done outsourcing her power and finally remembers. I was never meant to fit in. I was meant to rise. And sure, there will be days when you forget. Days when you slip back into old patterns. Days when the fear feels louder than the truth. That's okay. This isn't about being flawless. It's about being faithful. Faithful to your growth. Faithful to your healing. Faithful to the woman you're becoming, even when no one else can see her yet. Because you can feel her. You know she's in there. You can hear her whispering beneath the noise. You can sense her waking up, stretching her wings, and asking, "Is it safe to come out yet?" Make it safe. Make it safe to be powerful. Make it safe to be seen. Make it safe to shine. Not because it's easy, but because you finally understand. The life you crave doesn't come from becoming someone else. It comes from becoming fully yourself. And that changes everything. So, let's get honest. Becoming that woman, the one who moves with purpose, speaks with clarity, loves with boundaries, and walks into a room without shrinking. It's not just about journaling, vision boards, or learning how to manifest. It's about deep, inner recalibration. It's about asking, who am I when no one's watching? What do I believe I deserve? What patterns am I repeating because I'm afraid to choose differently? It's about facing the uncomfortable truths, like how often you've settled for crumbs, not because you didn't want more, but because you didn't think you could have more. It's recognizing that you've mistaken chaos for passion, that you've confused being needed with being loved, that you've spent years pouring into others while quietly abandoning yourself. And now, you're done. Not bitter, not cold, just clear. Clear on what you will and won't allow. Clear on who gets access to your time, your energy, your heart. Clear on how deeply you're committed to showing up for yourself. Because at some point, every woman reaches that sacred breaking point. The moment she realizes that staying small is actually more painful than growing. That continuing to self-abandon just to make others comfortable is a betrayal she can no longer tolerate. That she's no longer interested in being chosen by those who can't even choose themselves. That she's no longer available for relationships where she has to prove her worth just to be treated with basic respect. And so she stops. She stops chasing, performing, overgiving. She stops trying to read minds, fix everything, and earn love like it's some prize to win. Instead, she returns to herself. She slows down. She breathes deeper. She listens to her body. She honors her intuition, not just as a soft voice, but as a sacred compass. She gets radically honest about what drains her and what lights her up. She starts doing less of what breaks her down and more of what brings her back to life. And as she does, the world begins to shift. Not because it changes instantly, but because she does. Her energy feels different. Her presence feels grounded. Her decisions feel rooted in alignment instead of anxiety. People may not understand. Some may distance themselves. Some may say she's too much now, or not enough of what they liked before. That's okay. She's not here to be understood by everyone. She's here to be true to herself. Because the truth is, when a woman decides to stop betraying herself, she becomes powerful in a way that can't be undone. She doesn't have to yell to be heard. She doesn't have to beg to be seen. She simply is. And in that quiet confidence, she reclaims her life. She reclaims her softness, not as weakness, but as wisdom. She reclaims her voice, not to shout over others, but to speak from truth. She reclaims her space, not by asking for permission, but by knowing she belongs. There's a moment, maybe you've felt it, where you realize you're not searching for someone to complete you anymore. You're just searching for more of you. The real you. The one you buried under expectations, fears, and stories that never belonged to you in the first place. The one who laughs deeply, cries openly, creates wildly, loves fully. That's who you're coming home to. That's who this whole journey has been about. Not becoming someone else, but unbecoming everything you're not. Unlearning the lies. Letting go of the noise. Remembering the truth. You are already whole. You don't need to hustle to be worthy. You don't need to shrink to be loved. You don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You just need to remember who you are, and have the courage to live from that place, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's inconvenient, even when no one claps for you. Especially then. Because that's when it's real. That's when it's yours. And that's when the life you've been craving doesn't just become possible, it becomes inevitable. You know what's wild? When you finally stop waiting for someone else to validate your worth, the world starts responding to you differently. It's not magic. It's not ego. It's the energy of someone who has nothing to prove and everything to protect. You stop showing up to be liked, and start showing up to be real. You stop bending over backward to fit in, because fitting in was never the goal. The goal was belonging. And true belonging only happens when you show up as your authentic self. You stop fearing solitude. Because solitude, for the first time, doesn't feel like a punishment, it feels like peace. You're not lonely. You're with yourself. And that's enough. You start treating your energy like currency. You become mindful of what you invest it in, who you give it to, and whether it's actually reciprocated. And here's what might shock you. You realize that most of what used to drain you wasn't even necessary. You were over-explaining, over-apologizing, overthinking every little thing, trying to keep the peace while you were at war with yourself. You were exhausted and calling it normal. But now you're aware. And awareness is a kind of freedom you can't unfeel. It's clarity that slices through noise. It's the moment you go, oh, I was never the problem. I just kept handing my power to people who didn't know what to do with it. So you take it back. Not with a dramatic announcement. Not with fireworks. Just quietly, consistently. You take it back every time you say no without guilt. Every time you leave the party early because your energy's done. Every time you don't chase a connection that's clearly fading. Every time you stop explaining your boundaries to people committed to misunderstanding them. And slowly, the world you once tolerated starts to shift. You begin attracting people who see you without needing you to shrink. People who meet you where you are, not where they hope you'll be once you change. People who value your honesty more than your performance. Because now you're not looking for love as a transaction. You're not showing up with a mask just to be palatable. You're showing up fully, freely, imperfectly, and that is magnetic. You become the kind of woman who doesn't just talk about self-worth, she embodies it. The kind who sets standards, not ultimatums. The kind who holds space, but also holds herself. The kind who walks away, not to punish, but to protect her peace. You stop needing closure. You create it. You stop waiting for someone to make it up to you. You give yourself what you were hoping they would. Love, attention, affection, kindness. You become the source. And you realize, the most dangerous version of you is the one who knows she can give herself everything she used to beg for. That's the moment things get powerful. That's the moment your life starts moving with a different rhythm. Not faster, not louder, but more aligned. Aligned with truth, with peace, with a deeper kind of joy. You start waking up with more ease. You stop questioning your every move. You begin to trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, the fear of rejection fades. Because you no longer see rejection as loss. You see it as redirection, as protection, as a gift. You no longer chase people who leave. Because if they can't hold your fullness, they don't deserve your presence. Not in a bitter way, in a clear way. You start honoring your capacity, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And that becomes your standard, not your exception. Because this version of you, she doesn't abandon herself for love. She doesn't trade dignity for validation. She doesn't perform for acceptance. She lives in truth. And truth is unshakable. So the next time you feel yourself slipping back into old patterns, people pleasing, shrinking, dimming your light just to feel safe, pause. Take a breath. Remember who you've become. And then ask, is this loving? Is this aligned? Is this me? Because if the answer's no, then that's your sign. To step back. To rise up. To move on. Not because you're above it, but because you're finally in integrity with the woman you're becoming. And that woman, she's no longer for everyone. She's for herself. And she's just getting started. You ever notice this? The moment you stop chasing, everything starts to come to you more naturally. Not because you gave up, but because you stopped moving from lack, from fear, from insecurity. You stopped trying to force things, and instead, you started letting things unfold. Not passively, but from a place of wholeness. Because here's what most people don't tell you. Wholeness isn't about being perfect. It's about being self-connected. It's about not needing someone to come in and complete you, because you're already home in yourself. You don't need constant reassurance. You don't need someone to fill the silence. You don't need chaos to feel alive. You've met yourself. And now, you like your own company. So if someone comes into your life, they're not there to fix a wound. They're there to walk beside someone already healing. And that changes everything. Because you stop tolerating breadcrumb love. You stop confusing potential for reality. You stop making excuses for people who only show up halfway. You stop looking at red flags and calling them growth opportunities. You stop trying to convince anyone to choose you, because you're already chosen by you. And when you've chosen yourself fully, you don't settle for halfway connections anymore. You want depth. You want the kind of love that feels like coming home, not walking on eggshells. The kind that doesn't make you question your worth every time there's silence. The kind that adds to your peace, not replaces it. And when you operate from that kind of clarity, two things happen. You become wildly attractive, because nothing is more powerful than someone who's at peace. And you become extremely selective, because not everyone deserves access to that peace. You stop rushing the process. Because now, your timeline isn't built on pressure. It's built on readiness. You're not looking for someone to fix you. You're looking for someone who can meet you. Match your emotional maturity. Respect your boundaries. Hold space for your light and your shadows. And if they can't, you let them go, with love, but without hesitation. Because your peace is too expensive to trade for inconsistent attention. You don't need someone to chase you. You need someone who's ready. Ready to communicate. Ready to be honest. Ready to grow with you, not around you. And you're no longer afraid to walk away when that's not what you're being offered. Because you trust something deeper now. You trust that letting go makes space for something more aligned. You trust that your energy doesn't belong in places where your presence feels optional. You trust yourself. That's the root of it all. It's not about finding the right person. It's about becoming the version of you who no longer tolerates anything less than aligned love. Love that flows, not controls. Love that empowers, not drains. Love that sees you fully, and still chooses you. But it all starts with you. The moment you stop waiting for love to save you, and start becoming the kind of person who saves herself, that's the moment life starts to feel different. Not easier. Not always lighter. But more honest. More real. More alive. Because now you're not chasing. You're choosing. And that's a power no one can take from you. So what happens next? You stop performing. You stop trying to earn love like it's some prize for being good enough. You stop shape-shifting just to keep someone interested. Instead, you show up fully, authentically. No more watered-down versions of yourself. You speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. You ask for what you need, without apologizing for it. You stop over-explaining your worth to people who never had the capacity to see it in the first place. And when someone doesn't meet you there, you don't internalize it as rejection. You recognize it for what it is. Misalignment. Not a verdict on your value. Just a sign that their path isn't yours, and that's okay. Because you're not here to be understood by everyone. You're here to be real. And real doesn't always mean liked. But it always means free. Free from needing validation just to breathe. Free from overanalyzing every text or tone. Free from shrinking yourself just to be palatable. Because now, you're not afraid to be too much, too deep, too emotional, too intense, too whatever. You've stopped trying to dim your light for people still squinting. Because the right people, they won't be blinded by your brightness. They'll be drawn to it. They'll love the way your mind works. They'll listen when you speak, not just hear you, but feel you. They'll admire your passion, your softness, your strength. They won't run from your depth, they'll dive into it with you. And when that happens, You won't feel like you're chasing love. You'll feel like you've finally matched with it. But even then, you'll know something most people never realize. That love isn't the destination. Love is what flows through you when you're living in alignment. It's not just something you get from others, it's something you become. When you live honestly, when you live courageously, when you trust yourself deeply, even when life gets messy. And that's the real glow up. Not just looking good on the outside, but feeling safe on the inside. At peace with your past, in love with your present, and deeply excited for your future, even if you can't fully see it yet. Because you trust the unfolding. You trust your inner compass. You trust that life, when lived authentically, always brings you exactly where you need to be. Not on your timeline, but on truth's timeline. So whether you're single, healing, thriving, or somewhere in between, know this: you are not behind. You are not broken. You are not too late for anything meant for you. You're becoming. And in that becoming, you are attracting a life that matches your depth. So let the old fall away. Let the unaligned exit. Let the quiet seasons teach you. And then, let yourself bloom. Without apology. Without permission. Without delay. Because you were never too much. You were just waiting to meet the version of you that finally saw it. And she's here now. Welcome home.